everyone, welcome back to another day in the arena. It's me, it's CGB, the one in best of one, bringing you another video. Reacties, reactional video. Me just looking at new cards from Dominaria United, which is so close. It's so close, you guys. It's like the 30th is early access, the 1st is the drop on Arena. It's like 9 days away. Can you believe it? I'm so excited. But before we get into that, I just want to say something really quick. Something I don't mention often. But when you post a video every day, every single day of the year, 365, as I often do, one of those days, exactly one of those days every single year, happens to just randomly, I guess, be the day I was born. It's my birthday. You're watching this on my birthday. If you're watching it in the first 24 hours, like 90% of the audience does, and then it's lost forever into the void where no one ever looks at it again except for you maniacs who go back through my old videos. You watch an old video because you don't like whatever deck I played today, and then you leave me a comment and I see a comment pop up on a video like 3 years ago like, oh my gosh, CGB, you were so bad. You were such a terrible YouTuber back then. Why am I watching this? I don't know. I can't answer that. But I do appreciate all the watch time. And so yeah, anyway, it's my birthday. And what I would love most for my birthday, if any of you want to get me something, there is what I want most is to dominate the YouTube algorithm and be the most watched MTG arena YouTuber forever. I currently am, actually. You guys have done amazing things as far as an MTG arena YouTuber. We are doing it. There is the competition has been bested, and it's been that way for over a year. So I appreciate that. The plan, the thing that is always the challenge, is the longevity, the same thing, the day in, the day out, the grind, the long game. And I'm not complaining. I always keep in perspective that it isn't particularly hard to play video games every day as a career. I'm grateful very much for that and for all of you. But it's the monotony, it's the itch, it's the pull in all these different directions. And I try to satisfy it. You know, I've got the Commander channel now, Covert Go Crew, check that out. It's a new YouTube channel dedicated to the worst possible Commander show, which is where you'll find that show from now on. And, but in general, something that sustains me, quite honestly, is the feeling of growth, forward progress, success. So what you can do for me, for my birthday, what I would appreciate more than anything is just, watch, like, subscribe. And if you are in a position to get somebody a gift where you have money after taking care of your family and taking care of yourself and getting yourself a little something nice, and you have a few bucks and you really like the content, you can use the Patreon. There's a link in the description, or there's a tips. I believe I still have a Stream Elements tip page set up. You can use that. There are ways to get me a little monetary gift, so to speak. Another way to support the channel, if you buy Magic cards, is to use the promo code CGB5 at coolstuffinc.com. Please consider that. Another free way to support the channel is to download MTGA Assistant. All these links are in the description. If you've never clicked on the description and just poked around in there at the different ways to support the channel, that would be the finest birthday gift you can get me. Is if you are in a position to support the channel, any of those things sound doable, and you want to click the description and poke around and see if there's a way that works for you, please do. And thank you. You guys, you give me a cool life, and I'm one of those people who dreads their birthday, especially the older I get. But this is, this feels good. I'm very happy to have purpose every day, even if it's as silly as getting up and reacting to Magic cards, something I've been pogging out over since I was 12 years old, and sharing it with all of you. So let's do it. Enough about me and my stupid birthday. Let's talk about Braid's Arisen Nightmare. Again, these are new cards coming in Dominaria United, dropping in just about 9 days on MTG Arena. And Braids, the Arisen Nightmare, is 1 and a black for a legendary creature, Nightmare, 3/3 at rare. And it says at the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice an artifact, a creature, enchantment, land, or planeswalker. If you do, each opponent may sacrifice a permanent that shares a card type with it. For each opponent who doesn't, that player loses 2 life, and you draw a card. Braids is back on the menu, and there is always kind of a market for players who enjoy this sort of sacrificey, I punish myself to punish you type of gameplay. So I imagine this card will be incredibly popular, especially in Commander, where each opponent is a much bigger deal. Will it be good? Let's see what kind of plays you can make with this thing. If you drop this and sacrifice, I don't know, a goat token. I know Woe Strider isn't in standard, but just say you have a creature that you don't mind sacrificing, right? Then each opponent, your one opponent, in the case of a 1v1, may sacrifice a card that share a type with it. So they may sacrifice a creature if they have one. If they don't have one, then automatically they meet the clause of the opponent who doesn't. That player loses 2 life and you draw a card. So the idea of if your opponent just isn't playing a creature and you drop this on end step and sacrifice something that doesn't mean much to you, somehow gains you value. Picture an iTwitch or a Shambling Ghast, even though both of those are rotating. I don't know. You probably don't want to sacrifice a Tenacious Underdog on the battlefield, but just assume that there's something worth sacrificing. Getting the opponent to lose 2 life and you draw a card is a nice payoff. The setup is a little tricky. Another thing that's really cool about this, in my opinion, would be Anvil. That's the place that this stands out to me the most as a potential home. Is when you drop this, you can, at the beginning of the end step, you can sacrifice an artifact like a blood token. If you have an Anvil on the field, it'll still trigger that blood token, and if the opponent doesn't have an artifact, which isn't super likely even in a treasure environment, then they lose 2 life and you draw a card. That's a lot of pressure between the Anvil itself always recreating more artifacts. It has the ability to sacrifice artifacts as well and damage the opponent, and them losing 2 life and drawing a card to Braids. That's pretty good. Is it better than Obnixilis? Is it better than Fable the Mirror Breaker? Is it better than Liliana of the Veil? There's so much competition in black and red at the 3-drop spot. Remember when Mono White had all the busted 3-drops? It seems like Rakdos now has all the busted 3-drops. I can't even read. And take these sunglasses off. Sorry, the lights were really bright and it was bugging me at first, and now I'm like, I gotta be able to read the card. I can't have comments telling me to read the card. All right, but yeah, this plus Anvil seems really intimidating, and it might be one of those cards that you just play 1 or 2 of in the deck because it is legendary and it is narrow. It does need other things going on. Fortunately, those other things going on are things that Anvil does a lot. It's not like they will not be without artifacts or things to sacrifice. And on top of that, you can sack a land and then pressure your opponent to sack land. Do you want to recommend it? You usually need your lands in Magic, but there are some of you absolute psychopaths who are going to love that for this card. So I think that the people who love this card and want to play this card and believe in this card already are like we don't need to sell them. Skeptics like me, I'm like, I don't know, are you sure? The biggest downside to this card, honestly, dies to Lightning Strike. And I do think that that's going to be one of the most played cards in Best of 1 Magic for the next 2 years. So when there's a 2 mana, just remove this thing, that's very scary for me to play. Something that has to make it to the end step to be relevant. So I'm not a firm believer in Braids. I don't think you have to run out and craft this or you'll be behind. I'll have to play with it first. I do think an Anvil home is probably best, but maybe there's also a home with Wedding Announcement where you sacrifice some of your 1/1s and force the opponent to sack creatures, or you draw more cards, and I don't know. But I'm not a believer yet on this card, and my crafting recommendation is don't craft it yet. Not a day 1 craft. Let's talk about another epic mythic that dropped. It's Karn, the Living Legacy. Karn Living Legacy is 4 colorless for a 4 loyalty planeswalker at Mythic. The +1 says create a tapped Power Stone token. Apparently a Power Stone is an artifact with tap for a colorless. This mana can't be spent to cast a non-artifact spell. Lame. The -1 is pay any amount of mana, but not from Power Stones, I'm guessing, because it's not an artifact spell. Anyway, pay any amount of mana. Look at that many cards from the top of your library, then put one of those cards into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And then the -7 is you get an emblem with tap an untapped artifact you control. This emblem deals 1 damage to any target. So the emblem is a win con. That is something. It does require artifacts, but of course plussing creates artifacts. What is weird to me is that the -1 doesn't appear to work with the +1. So let me try this again. The +1 creates a tapped Power Stone token. A Power Stone is an artifact that taps for a colorless, but the mana can't be spent to cast a non-artifact spell. Okay. This wording is probably super important. It can't be spent to cast a non-artifact spell, but it can be used for other purposes. Purposes like pay any amount of mana. Okay, so the -1 does work with the +1. You can use the Power Stone shards with the -1 to look at cards. You just can't cast non-artifact spells with it, but you can use the mana for other things. The mana can activate creature abilities. Trying to think of a few, but my brain is already a little numb on this one. But yeah, maybe like activating a blood token, I suppose, is an option. Activating your Celestis is an option. So yeah, the mana just can't be used to cast a non-artifact spell. Gosh, that's such a tricky line of text. But now that I understand that it does work with the -1, because my first read said that you couldn't use the Power Stone shards with the -1. Now that I know that it definitely makes the card a little better, and the card actually makes sense to exist because it wouldn't otherwise. When last we had a 4-mana Karn, was it War of the Spark? There were a billion Planeswalker options in every color combination. Before that, there was a Dominaria Karn. And it was a very good Karn that went in a ton of decks. The cool thing about Karn is it's a colorless planeswalker, and if it has options that create mana or card advantage, it offers those things to decks that wouldn't normally get a lot of access to those things. And that can be really powerful and make the card very playable. Think about a deck like some kind of a Rakdos deck that does things with large amounts of mana or wants a planeswalker that can ultimate to win con. Normally it wouldn't have access to very good ramp, but now it can access Karn Living Legacy, which gives you a little bit of card advantage and a little bit of ramp. I am super skeptical of the card on its own because it doesn't defend itself. And we've all heard this about planeswalkers a ton of times, but all the planeswalkers that have been format defining defend themselves pretty well. And even the 4-mana Karn from Dominaria had a minus that created a board presence. It created a creature, and those creatures grew with time. This doesn't create a board presence per se. A Power Stone token isn't gonna do a lot on its own unless you have other ways to leverage that artifact. So while this Karn is cool, I'm very skeptical of it. I think it will be a niche player in very specific roles and decks, and because of that, I would say don't craft. This gets an avoid this until you are sure it goes in a deck you will enjoy recommendation from me out of the box for Dominaria. But I'm definitely going to try decks with this, at least early on, and try to see how it plays. Also, give me your best uses for a Power Stone token in the comments. It even comes in tapped. Man, that is so nerfed. But give me the best ideas you have for Power Stone tokens, which is artifacts that tap for a colorless, and the mana can't be spent to cast a non-artifact spell. So it's either activating abilities of things on the battlefield, channeling it through some kind of mana. Maybe there's a way to like wash it so that it comes out the other side clean, like a Basalt Monolith in Commander. But let me know. Let me know what you think you can do with those Power Stone tokens. Our next card is Shauna, the Purifying Blade. This is Bant for 3/3 lifelink human warrior mythic. At the beginning of your end step, you may pay X. If you do, draw X cards. X can't be greater than the amount of life you gained this turn. My first impression of this card is, oh my gosh, the life gainer nerds are gonna go nuts. They now have a reason to play blue. This is the most life gain that blue, I think, has had in a long time. And brokers might actually have an identity now as like the life gain deck, because Bant, I should say, because it really didn't have a good identity coming out of New Capenna. It wasn't clear what all you could do with it. So this card definitely gives it this angle. It's a mythic, so it's going to get the life gain gamers to spend their mythics. It's also a really cool commander. The idea that you don't have to attack with it to gain the life is really great. You can just gain the life through other means, a Cosmos Elixir, for example. But turning this thing sideways and getting it through combat does mean that you can just draw 3 cards on its own. Pay 3, draw 3. It is pretty slow, but it's not an embarrassing body on its own. And if you're in a spot like against aggro, then it helps stabilize the battlefield. It does die to Lightning Strike, which continues and will continue to be a huge problem, but that's one less Lightning Strike that hit your face. And against a control deck, they have to deal with it. They can't just take 3 and ignore it. You'll get to draw 3 cards that will bury them. So you do want, even if this is like right on the borderline, you want your 3-mana card to do something the turn it enters the battlefield. This doesn't technically do that in the traditional sense with an ETB, but what it does do is it enters the battlefield and says, deal with this now. An aggro deck has to kill it, or it's going to start gaining life and going to be a huge problem. They have to get through it. And a control deck has to kill it. This card demands removal. And that means if you can protect it in some way, there's that selfless... It's not Selfless Savior, that's the dog. Selfless Samurai is a 2-mana 2/2 that you can sacrifice to give another creature indestructible, and whenever a samurai attacks alone, it gains lifelink. That seems like a really good combination with this card, because you can use it to gain life and trigger this card, or you can sacrifice it to protect this card. So maybe there's the start of something there. You can also combine this with various other life gainy like synergies that might get printed. A lot of them are rotating, but you know, say that there is a Prosperous Innkeeper type card. This card will go very good with it. So a lot of people are going to be finding ways to use and abuse this card. If something holds it back, it's probably the 3 colors of mana in the casting cost. And I'm not sure that the mono white and that the white green life gain enthusiasts are going to want to branch into Bant, which has been, both from a viewership perspective and from a play rate perspective coming out of New Capenna, the least played combination. And the one that seems to have the least interest in standard. So that's going to hold this back. And you know, if you're life gain enthusiast or a Bant enthusiast, you probably do want to craft this right away. But to anybody just looking to have the best deck or have great cards only and spend their wild cards carefully, don't craft this yet. The next card is Namata, the Primeval Warden. This is another legend at 2 and a Golgari, 4 total mana, 3/4 legendary creature treefolk. Reach. If a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. When you do, create a 1/1 green Saproling creature token. For a green, sack a Saproling, and this gets +2/+2 until end of turn. For 1 in a black, sacrifice 2 Saprolings, draw a card. It's a little bit of a lot of things. A little bit of Kalitas, if you remember that card. You should have watched my Explorer Anthology review if you don't. And Valentine, the Dean of the Vein, the Strixhaven 1-drop that when things died, they got exiled and you made pests. You know, there's a few different homages going on with this particular card. Golgari is a weird color combination. Like, does this make the cut in Jund? The card also dies to Doomblade, doesn't generate any value on its own. It doesn't draw a card to replace itself until some other things die. But the stat line, like basically the existence of Kalitas is what gives you pause. Like that card always outperformed what the initial impression said it would do in very different formats. But it has seen play in Explorer, which is a much more powerful format. So I'm super cynical of this card. I also am wary that I could be very wrong and it could be a very good card. I'm wondering how it makes the cut in the 4-drop spot. Like, does Jund play this? They have a ton of removal. So As long as you play this and something on the opponent's side dies, that's good. Exiling the opponent's things can, in many formats, be very important. If there's a sacrifice style deck, this can be a very powerful card against that deck. I'm 4 toughness is out of lightning strike range. I'm cynical, but I could be wrong. My impression would be to dismiss this entirely if I hadn't been wrong about Kalitas long ago, and just keeping my eye on a similarly statted creature. Wanted to share it with you guys, but I'm not running out to craft this. This is a very like lukewarm. We're gonna try it, and it might be a lot better than it looks, but I'm not crafting it right away if I'm on a wildcard budget. All right, you have my Iconoclast. This is an uncommon. Budget fans rejoice. Look at that big blade energy. Now I can't unsee that. Anyway, this is 1 in a green for a 3/2 elf, and it has a kicker in red, so you may pay an additional red as you cast it. This card has trample, so for 2 mana you get a 3/2 trample. For 3 mana you get, when this enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, it gets +1/+1 and gains haste until end of turn. It gets +1/+1 and gains haste until end of turn. It's not a +1/+1 counter. So it's 3 mana for a 4/3 trample haste. And then it goes back to being a 3/2 trample the next turn. Is that good? So this one was sent to me and there were some people excited. Like, oh my gosh, there's a really good 2 mana / 3 mana card. And I was like, the first read, I was like, yeah, okay, I'll read that. We'll do a reaction thing. Now I'm reading it. I thought it had a permanent +1/+1. I think without the permanent +1/+1, I think that actually hurts it quite a bit. This card might see play, but I think it would be because Gruul really needed to go down this hasty route that Boros already occupies. And I don't think Gruul wants to or needs to. I think Gruul wants to stay closer to like a mid-range deck, not a pure aggro deck, because their early drops generate mana. The werewolf generates mana. The cat that taps for a treasure, generates mana. So they really want their mid-range to be like good 4s, good 5s, I think. And I don't think that this is going to measure up and fit the bill. If the identity changes dramatically, maybe. Also, getting trample on a 2 mana body can be good if you're going to play with cards like Helana and Elena, which I think is going to be a really good card post rotation. So there might be a Gruul deck if there's enough support, and hopefully another really good 3-drop that hits really hard, something like a Gruul Spellbreaker. Then I could believe in like a Gruul deck where this could be a 2 or 3 of, maybe even 4 home. On its own right now, in current format, I'm not nearly as excited about this as I was before I read it for a second time. Next up is Plaza of Heroes. What's up? Look at these heroes, dude. Look at this statue. Oh my god. It's a land. It's a rare land. Always looking for good rare lands. Tap, add colorless. How exciting. Tap, add 1 mana of any color. More exciting. Spend this mana only to cast a legendary spell. Okay, I'm still in. There's a lot of legendary good stuff out there. Even 3-color legendary good stuff. Tap, add 1 mana of any color among legendary permanents you control. So if you already get a legend on the battlefield, this taps for a mana of any color of those permanents already. That is pretty sweet. 3 and a tap, exile this land and target legendary creature gains hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Nifty little trick to just kind of throw on your land to protect something. This is going to be huge in Commander, right? Because it can cast your commander, and then after that it makes mana of whatever color your commander was, and it defends your commander. So this land is going to be like a must in so many commander decks. Like, people are at the very least really going to go for it with this in Commander. In Standard, this might be an important part of a deck. Think about like, I'm thinking about like the Naya Humans deck where Helana and Elena was like splashed into an otherwise almost mono white deck. This could be really helpful as a land that can cast Helana and Elena, but also, you play like Thalia's and Adelines, so it casts those too. Doesn't cast Hopeful Initiate on turn 1 though, does it? So it's probably not a 4 of unless you're playing Legendaries Tribal. It's Dominaria. Last time there were various legendary tribal decks that turned out very strong, at least for a period of time. And it looks like there might be a cycle of, but there are at least several 3-color legends that this can work with. So this card will be a hit in some kind of deck in standard, I think. It'll probably be a very, very expensive wildcard intensive deck. So don't craft one of these on a whim. You'll definitely want one for Historic Brawl, I think. And you'll love them in paper. Like if you get one in paper, hang on to that. You'll probably find somebody to sell it to very quickly. Standard, I think it'll be in a very specific deck, and I'm not sure will be good. But at least we have another rare land option to go with the Pain Lands. The Pain Lands, though, are going to be... I would craft my full set of Pain Lands before I'd touch this, unless you're absolutely sure about what you're doing. That's going to be my recommendation for Plaza of Heroes. Don't craft right now. Next up, we have Cult Conscript. This is 1 black for a 2/1 Skeleton Warrior. Let's go. Pair it up with Skeleton Swarmings. I can hear them now. So Cult Conscript enters the battlefield tapped. I mean, it's black. Any 1 mana 2/1 probably will. For 1 in a black, return this from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only if a non-skeleton creature died this under your control this turn. I mean, it's a good 1 mana 2/1, and it's not rare. So a black, like, aggressive style deck will probably like this. We need new sacrifice fodder for black. We're losing the easy ones. Eye Twitch and Shambling Ghast made black just... It was so easy to have a good little piece of sacrificial fodder in black. And now we're losing those. So we need something that we're not afraid to throw in the graveyard, and it helps that it can beat down early. Like this into Tenacious Underdog. You're putting a lot of Excuse me. Got some air stuck in there. Sorry, getting old here. You know, happy birthday. Here's a bubble of air in your gut. Anyway, return this to the battlefield. I'm thinking of this in Tenacious Underdog. First of all, it's a really good curve. 1 mana 2/1, 2 mana 3/2. Throw in a Shakedown Heavy, you can have a 6/4 on turn 3 if you're just going for stats. So it's a very aggressive curve. Now you throw in the ability that you can bring this back from the graveyard to the battlefield. You can do it at instant speed, so it can happen on either turn. You just need a non-skeleton creature to die under your control. Little Gutter Bones vibe. Like your Tenacious Underdog blitzing and dying qualifies. So if you got up to 6 mana and you need a late game, you can be blitzing the underdog, drawing a card when it sacrifices, and then bringing this back. It could be worse as far as things to do with your 1 mana 2/1 and your 2 mana 3/2. Like that black is definitely scaling into the late game, and it does look promising. And of course you get that early damage in, and then Invoke Despair can really bury an opponent. So I think that there will definitely be a more aggressive, like the Blood on the Snow kind of blood money black decks. This isn't for that. This is for a much more aggressive leaning deck. You can throw in that Saga that creates a 2/2 menace on turn 3, and you can just damage your opponent. You can push a ton of tough to stop damage in, and then hit him with that Invoke Despair and burn him out. And don't forget your Meat Hook Massacres. You can kill your own creatures to kill them. Yeah, this is gonna see play. It's gonna be some good play too. I think this card is really doing something. Also, it doesn't say non-token. It just says non-skeleton. So this and Oni Cult Anvil can keep coming back. That could be interesting too. Phoenix Chick, we've got another uncommon. Yay! For 1 red, you get a 1/1 flying haste that can't block. Oh, but it can attack. And whenever you attack with 3 or more creatures, you may pay red. If you do, return Phoenix Chick from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped and attacking with a +1/+1 counter on it. That last line of text is the line that makes people go, ooh, and they get excited to play it. I think the idea of attacking with 3 or more creatures and having red to pay to get this back, I think that's going to be a lot harder than it looks. So I think that's not going to be a very common or popular situation, not something that's going to happen as much as people hope. So if we evaluate it without that line of text, it's not nearly as exciting, but it's definitely not bad. Like a 1 mana 1/1 flying haste is probably going to get in for like a lightning bolt's worth of damage. It's probably going to hit at least 3 times. The problem is after that, it's probably meat hook fodder, and it probably never comes back, because once you've been swept by a meat hook, what are you going to do from there? I am curious, like, are we going to try this in something along the lines of Boros, which already has a ton of hasty stuff going on, a place that moves +1/+1 counters around? Like, this would be really good with Luminar Gas Pirate. And that card is thankfully leaving. But if there's something like it that could be really interesting with this card, I think that this card will have various homes. People will definitely try it, and I don't think it's as good as it looks, but it's kind of just looking for the right team, and then it becomes much more dangerous. So also, if they bring back something like Spectacle or Bloodthirst abilities that were like, if the opponent has been dealt damage this turn, you get reduced cost or you get this effect. This card looks really good in those decks. Also, anything like if you attacked with a creature this turn, this and this, you know, this card looks really good in those. Next up is, last and probably least, is Monstrous War Leech. This is 3 and a black for a star Leech Horror at uncommon with kicker of blue. As it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, mill 4 cards. Monstrous War Leech's power and toughness are each equal to the highest mana value among cards in your graveyard. So you mill a big thing. This is a big thing. CGB, why are you spending my time on this draft, chaff? I thought you were the one in best of one. I thought you only liked good cards, CGB. Look, everybody's got a meme sometime, and this Monstrous War Leech thing, I just wanted to take a moment and remind you that Shadow of Mortality is in the format. Often unknown, except that time you get it as an ICR and you're like, what the hell is that? 15 mana, 7/7. So if you discard this to say a Tainted Indulgence, or if you mill it with your Monstrous War Leech kicker, or just discard it to a Celestis, I don't know, you could have a 4 mana 15/15 without haste, without other abilities. Is that good? Honestly, I don't know if I play a 4 mana 20/20 without haste or any other abilities, to be honest, but we're gonna call it an option because everybody needs a little dream and a little meme, and we all need something to do with Shadow of frickin' Morality. I've got like 6 of them in a binder over there. Actually, they're not even in a binder. Don't tell anybody. I didn't even sleeve them. But it would be nice if we could get them over that 33-cent price tag, you know? Let's get to work here, guys. CoolStuffInc.com, promo code CGB5, get your Shadows of Morality. Generally speaking, this latest batch of cards that I reviewed, there are a ton of kicker cards, and they took the longest to read because they have so many options. I will say, if there's a kicker card from the last few days that I haven't done on the show, it's because I feel they're all very fair rates. There's like a bounce spell that if you kick it for black and 2 others, you can put a creature or planeswalker on the bottom of the library. That's fine, but it's still 4 mana to deal with something that did enter the battlefield and got an ETB effect, so I'm not that excited about it. The flexibility is okay. Like, you'll probably see these kicker spells played here and there, but I don't think any of them changes the format. I think the rates on them are very fair. And when a card is fair, it's usually not the card that is going to set the world ablaze. Of course, I might and always do miss a divide by 0 lurking somewhere in the set, but I don't think I've seen it in this one. All right, you made it till the end. Thanks, as always, for staying through my reacting and talking about new cards videos. I enjoy them a lot more, often much more than playing the game when the meta is this old. But I have been playing a lot of Historic Brawl, and I have all kinds of flavors of Paradox Engine decks to share. So I'm off to do some traveling for the next few days, and I think I've got a few Historic Brawl gameplay videos lined up for you to enjoy. And then when I come back, we'll review more of the set. A few days, like a day or 2 after the set is completely revealed, I'll probably do a full set review if you want to hear some kind of a quick take on every single card, because you guys seem to be enjoying the card takes. So I'm going to keep it up. I do enjoy them a lot. Thank you. You made it till the end. That always is the best thing that you can do for me. I talked about gifts you could get me for my birthday at the start of the video. The best gift, and I only say it now because you already did it. I'm not going to beg people to watch all my videos. It's my job to be entertaining, engaging, and make videos that you want to watch. I'm not out here demanding it, but I will say, because I know, people wonder how they can help or what helps the most or what's the best thing they can do. The best thing you can possibly do is stay till the end. by a mile. There is no greater thing that you can do for me. So just you being here right now, you have given me the finest of birthday gifts. Thank you very much. Leave me a comment. Let me know you stayed till the end. It means a lot, as you can tell. And I will see you in the next video. You're cool.